Day 3 of my runaway groom escape. My fiancée just took her own life in our massive new bridal mansion and dumped her entire inheritance on me. While packing up her things, I stumbled on a wall completely covered in photos of, well, me. Her nanny hit me with a speech about how the young miss had been obsessed with me for years. Her past was a tragic disaster, leaving her with severe depression. Just seeing me or thinking of me was her only source of peace. Every word from the nanny felt like a suffocating nightmare, but weirdly enough, it completely broke my heart. So heartbreaking that I got a cosmic do-over. Reborn. When my childhood bestie offered her escape plan this time, I just smiled and said no. I wanted to see how ridiculously foolish this woman, who literally loved me to death, could actually be. In my previous life, Vesper died on the exact third day of my escape. My dad and brother gleefully spoiled my escape plan to her. The second I stepped out of the villa, I got the devastating news Vesper had cut her wrists. The rescue failed. She was gone. In an old will she drafted long ago, she left every single penny she owned to me. Stuck abroad, I took my brother's call, and my face went completely numb. To me, we were basically strangers, yet she had stubbornly insisted on forcing this marriage. But piece by piece, the dark truth was that she had been madly in love with me for years. Summoned by the lawyer, I rushed back home to receive Vesper's square urn. Her past was a blank slate, with absolutely no family around. Staring at that small box with crushing grief, the nanny whispered that the young miss had loved me for ages. Her depression was incredibly severe. Only seeing my face, or holding my image in her mind, gave her any peace. The nanny thought that once we married, Vesper's dark despair would finally fade away. Her voice trailed off with zero blame. But my chest still tightened painfully as her assistant handed me a key. It was the key to the massive villa Vesper built for us, the bridal home she decorated herself, and the exact place where she died. The estate was unbelievably massive, complete with a private horse track on the lawn. The entire aesthetic was my absolute favorite. Every piece of light gray furniture matched my exact taste. But wait till you see what was inside a secret room completely covered in photos of me. From my sophomore year in college right up to the present day, every single moment of my life had been captured through her lens. On the floor below were the dark bloodstains from her cut wrists. Every detail was suffocating, terrifying, and yet deeply heartbreaking in a way I couldn't explain. We had never once interacted. Her barging into my life was like a bandit crashing through the doors, demanding a marriage alliance out of thin air. And now, by dying in this tragic state, was she trying to wrap me in eternal guilt so I could never forget her? I ended up donating her entire inheritance, including that haunted mansion. Cleaners ripped down the wall of photos, tossing them onto the floor to cover those dark stains. Vesper's tragic, short life was entirely wiped from the earth, leaving absolutely no trace behind. It took me 3 full days to accept this bizarre life reboot. 3 days ago, Vesper showed up at my door, using absolute pressure to force a marriage alliance on me. My childhood bestie immediately told me to pack my bags, run away, and hide out to dodge this bullet for a few days. And that's exactly what I did in my previous life. But this time, remembering that room of photos and the blood on the floor, I calmly shook my head and told her I'm not running. I wanted to see how foolish this girl, who loved me more than life itself, actually was. Vesper's business empire was unbelievably massive. When I went to find her at her headquarters, she was still stuck in a meeting. Her personal assistant came down to receive me, asking me to wait in the office because boss Vesper would be out shortly. I just nodded. Vesper showed up at warp speed. Before I could even finish a single cup of tea, she was power walking right in. Spotting me, she stopped in her tracks and calmly called out, "Mr. Thorne." Her face was like an iceberg, treating me like a door-to-door salesman. I was left completely speechless by her cold attitude. Taking a second, I asked her straight up why she was so hell-bent on marrying me. Vesper's expression stayed totally blank. She said she wanted to marry me, so she was doing it no reason needed. I stood up, completely out of words, saying, "I'll take my leave." Vesper's calm face twitched, and a rare flash of pure panic washed over her features. She asked if I was really leaving just like that. I stared back deadpan, watching her turn pale, as a wave of self-loathing washed over her. Still, she physically stepped to the side to let me walk out. If I was not 100% sure she had a massive crush on me, I would think she was trolling. I sighed and took the lead, asking if she wanted to grab a meal together. Our interaction was so painfully awkward that her assistant looked like she was watching a terrifying horror movie. As I finally walked out, her assistant kept apologizing to me non-stop. She begged me not to be mad, explaining that boss Vesper is just terrible at talking to people. I told her I was fine. Smiling, I admitted that I actually quite like Vesper, and her face is exactly my cup of tea. Meanwhile, their office door was still slightly open. Looking through that tiny crack, I saw Vesper touching her cheeks, completely flustered. Grinning, I told the assistant that I booked her boss for dinner tonight, so she had better remind her. The assistant nodded frantically as if I might take back the invite any second. Smiling, I headed out towards the main gate. Talk about timing. The exact moment I step outside, my childhood bestie starts calling. Staring at the caller ID showing Blythe, my little sister, I calmly decline the call and look up at the drifting clouds. Blythe used to stick to me like superglue when we were kids, and she genuinely cared. But whether it is a childhood best friend or just an acquaintance, everyone eventually drifts away on this long journey. Exactly like in my past life. She eventually got a boyfriend, had a kid, and slowly learned to keep her distance from me. So when I got trapped deep in the mountains with my survey team at the end and called her for help, her husband was the only one who answered, mocking me endlessly. While that man was cussing me out over the phone, Blythe stood right beside him, completely silent. I ended up dying out there in the cold, and I still wonder what she actually felt. That evening, Vesper arrived incredibly early. Our dinner vibe was as freezing cold as a morgue, and she was a literal conversation-terminating machine. Every single topic I brought up just instantly flatlined. Feeling pretty exhausted, I placed my knife and fork heavily onto the table. I told her straight up that her acting like this made me feel she did not want to marry me. She lowered her head, softly apologizing, but that was not what I wanted to hear. Quite helpless. Having run a massive corporation for years, she remained completely undefeated at the negotiation table. Her understanding of the human heart should be perfect, right? Yet behaving this way made me feel like she had absolutely zero interest in our future marriage. Vesper's face turned instantly pale, her sharp fingernails digging painfully deep into her own palms. She quietly begged me not to overthink it, admitting she had never been this close to me and felt quite unaccustomed to it. Those sudden, almost confession-like words caught me completely off guard. Her intense nervousness and the actual blood dripping from her palms did not seem fake. Suddenly, I remembered what her old nanny said in my past life. The Mrs. Depression is incredibly severe, and she only ever feels a tiny bit better when she sees you. Curious, I bluntly asked if we had known each other before this. Her red lips trembled as her eyes subconsciously dodged mine, turning her head to stare out the restaurant window. I pressed her, asking how and when we met, but Vesper shut her mouth tight, refusing to say another word. With my interest waning slightly, I focused on my steak and stopped trying to force things. Vesper stayed completely silent too, seemingly oblivious to the fact that our dinner vibe was totally off. She just stared blankly at my lips and throat, her gaze trailing down with every sip of red wine I swallowed, before freezing out of sheer politeness. I calmly stared right back. She panicked and looked away, her face quite pale as she accidentally bit her lip open, drawing bright red blood. I sighed helplessly at the sight. I told her that if she wants to look, she should look openly instead of acting so sneaky. After all, we are getting married soon. She could honestly afford to be a bit more open. Still, I kept muttering to myself, you and I both know she literally took thousands of photos, hired spies to watch me, and even bribed my nanny. This girl is definitely a certified yandere, but since she is sick, I should probably have some patience. I took the lead and held her hand. Ignoring her instantly stiffened posture, I used a damp tissue to gently wipe the blood off her palm, whispering that her hands are pretty and she should not hurt them anymore. Vesper did not answer. She just looked up and stared straight into my eyes, pausing for a long moment before asking if my actions meant I was actually willing to marry her. Did she ever even give me a choice? Clutching her dress tightly, she quietly whispered that if I really did not want this, I could just run away from the wedding. I will still hunt you down and scream right in your face. I stared deep into her eyes. If I did that, I would be fine, but what about Vesper? The answer was obvious. She would die. And in my past life, I never quite figured it out. How weak do you have to be to avoid a face-to-face meeting, and just end your own life so casually because a groom ran away? But honestly, I just could not bear to let her die. Vesper was undeniably a business genius with an incredibly sharp eye for investments, yet her origins remained a total enigma. Rivals dug straight to the center of the earth and still could not uncover her background. They could only watch helplessly as she seized the internet boom, skyrocketing straight to the top, ruling the market while casually suffocating the old money families of River City until they could barely breathe. Yet, she ended her life during the absolute prime of her youth. In my past life, Vesper became the ultimate laughingstock, mocked by everyone as nothing more than a desperate simp. And because of the relentless hype from rival companies, people dragged her name through the absolute dirt. I refused to let history repeat itself. On the ride home, I cleared my mind and thought deeply, before finally turning to look at the expressionless Vesper sitting beside me. I decided to have a serious talk with her personal assistant in a few days. I honestly had no idea how to talk to her. And as for her illness, was there really no cure for it? The black Rolls-Royce parked right at the front entrance of my villa. By pure coincidence, we ran into Chloe, who was bringing over some pastries. Vesper's eyes immediately went cold, making me ask if she wanted to go out and say hello. I tilted my head, reminding her that Chloe is just the sweet girl from next door. But Vesper flatly refused. Vesper turned her face away, coldly telling me that I should just go home. Her lips dismissed it, but her heart suddenly froze over with bitterness, as if she had swallowed a mouthful of raw lemons. I quietly looked out the window. Chloe and I are purely friends. Nothing is going on. I turned my head, only to see Vesper frantically digging her nails into her palm, exposing old, faded scars. Miss Vesper, if there is something weighing on your mind, you really need to talk to me. Keeping all of this locked up inside just makes everything so much harder. Following a heavy silence, Vesper slowly muttered that she does not really like her. I smiled, patting her head gently, and promised that we simply will not talk to her. Chloe is just an old friend. You absolutely do not have to force yourself to like her. Besides, you and I are going to get married soon. Our bond is going to be infinitely closer than theirs. If my friendship with her bothers you, I will completely stay away from her from now on. Vesper was a bit stunned. She asked if I would stay away just for her. Why not? Watch how I leaned in close, telling her things only get solved when we say them out loud. If you are upset with me, or if there is something you need to say, you must speak up. Stop holding it inside. I could roughly sense it by now. Vesper had absolutely no clue how to handle a real relationship. She literally applied her ruthless business negotiation tactics to romance, forcing my family into a strategic marriage alliance. Yet, she gets completely flustered and lost the second I actually show up at her door, not knowing how to act. When it came to love, she was almost terrifyingly pure. That is fine. I can slowly teach her. Blythe watched me step out of Vesper's car. Her grip on the pastry box tightened, her expression looking a bit fragile. Once the car drove away, Blythe walked right up. Are you marrying her? I mean, she is pretty. She is pure perfection, flawless. Plus, joining our family resources is a massive win for everyone involved. So, why shouldn't I marry her? But she froze mid-sentence, looking a bit flustered, her breathing suddenly coming in short, rapid gasps. She clutched her chest, forcing out a dry, desperate question. Are you sure you actually like her? I shrugged. Who actually marries for love in our circle? She is just incredibly suitable. But what about us? I quickly cut her off with a cold stare. Blythe, I am getting married. Some things are better left unsaid. It only causes massive misunderstandings. I walked straight inside, completely ignoring her as she stood there. Honestly, even in this second life, I still could not understand why her attitude was always so hot and cold, making her utterly impossible to read. In my past life, I proposed to her, and she ruthlessly rejected me. She told me she wanted to play the field for another 2 years. Yet, she fell in love at first sight with some guy while building snowmen in St. Petersburg, speedrunning a wedding and a kid in less than 3 months. Her new husband was extremely bothered by my existence. So, I completely cut all contact, never expecting it to become a permanent goodbye. If Blythe ever heard the sudden news of my death, she would probably be a little sad, right? Remember, when local punks bullied her outside of school, I was the one who tracked them down and slapped them back one by one. When I went to see Vesper the next day, she was still in a meeting. Watching her stormy face through the clear glass, I waited out in the lounge, casually chatting with her assistant. But her assistant kept her lips sealed, constantly talking in circles with me. Even when I pointedly brought up Vesper's illness, she played dumb and pretended not to know, which honestly exasperated me. I asked if explaining things clearly to me would be best for her condition, but she said her boss did not want me to know. She pointedly told me Vesper wanted to remain absolutely flawless in my eyes forever. She added that Vesper really hoped I would rely on her, but right then, Vesper finished her meeting and walked in looking quite exhausted. I leaned back, asking if her beauty was natural, telling her we were just talking about how pretty she is. I teased that her assistant agreed she was stunning, and hearing that, Vesper completely froze. By then, the assistant had tactfully slipped out, closing the door behind her. The lounge went completely silent before Vesper spoke in a slightly hoarse voice. She asked if I liked her face, and I asked if that was really shocking. Did she seriously have zero self-awareness about her own looks? The tips of her ears flushed red, and she awkwardly turned away, refusing to look at me. Speaking of which, me still calling you Miss Vesper at this point, is not that a bit too distant? I walked up, reaching out to gently pat her head. Her hair felt smooth, carrying a refreshing, subtle fragrance as I bent down near her ear. I simply asked if I could call her Vesper, but she suddenly shoved me away in sudden anger. I honestly could not figure out why she was so mad. Just like I could never understand why she liked me first. Sitting behind the desk with her back to me, her voice inexplicably carried a trace of disgust as she told me to leave. I mentioned wanting to grab lunch together, but Vesper rejected me instantly, saying she was too busy at noon. I quietly sized her up for a few seconds, telling her to watch the time because she cannot skip meals. Walking out, I lingered by the door. As the assistant watched nervously, the sound of glass smashing and Vesper's painful, muffled sobs echoed from inside. You see, I left it open on purpose. Her agonizing, desperate crying leaked out alongside the sound of shattering glass. I tapped on the desk in front of her assistant, looking dead serious. I asked if she still planned on keeping me in the dark. She hesitated, but I did not bother waiting. I just pushed the door open and walked in. Vesper looked a total mess, hugging her knees as she curled up in the corner right on top of shattered glass. Blood stained her fingertips, and whether she scratched herself or got cut by the shards, I had no idea. Stepping over the mess, I approached her. Vesper lowered her head in sheer panic, refusing to look up, as I gently placed my hand on her shoulder. Asking what was wrong, I scooped her up. Even though she was quite tall for a girl at 1.7 meters, she felt light. Sitting beside her, I carefully used tweezers to pluck the sharp glass shards from her hand. Vesper finally looked up, staring right at me. After a long silence, she hoarsely asked if her hands looked completely hideous. Looking at those slender, unhealthily pale fingers with barely any flesh on them, I just stared in silence. I could only mutter to myself about how little self-awareness this girl actually has. They look beautiful. Helplessly, I leaned down, brought her fingertips to my lips, and kissed them gently, but she still looked pretty miserable. She quietly asked if I had said the exact same sweet things to all my exes. She wondered if they got the same kindness, the special treatment, and the name Vesper. I fell into a completely bizarre silence. So, she threw this massive fit because of that? In the end, it was literally just her crazy yander brain acting up. Is she running on a single-core brain? Outside of boardroom business, she literally cannot process a single thing. How does she let emotions torture her so miserably? I patted her head, sighing softly to myself. I called her silly, asking if those even counted as real relationships. Sure, I am good-looking and from a decent family, so naturally I liked a few girls, but things always fizzled out quickly and nothing ever came of it. I am really not some player. My dad made it clear early on that while I can date around, eventually I must settle down and accept a proper arranged marriage. Carrying her over, I sat her on the sofa, called cleaners to sweep up the broken glass, and poured her a warm cup of water. While running around to take care of things, Vesper pressed down on my hand. She whispered that I did not need to do any of this, so I sat down. Do not contact them anymore. Vesper's sudden, sharp demand completely shatters my train of thought. I turn around to face her, but seeing that deadly serious look on her face just makes me want to tease her a bit. Are you ordering me around? Her entire body freezes instantly. She can barely breathe as she realizes what she just blurted out, quickly looking away. If you ever want to call them, you have to let me know first. Otherwise, but I cut her off, promising I will never speak to them again. Then I ask her if she is really this upset over some past flings that do not even count as actual exes. Vesper stays dead silent, leaving me completely helpless. If something is actually bothering you, just tell me, because acting like this is honestly exhausting for me too. You hide your feelings, blow up out of nowhere, and smash things. I have no idea how to make you feel better. So, did your exes do a better job than me? Vesper snaps, interrupting me with tear-filled eyes, demanding an answer like an incredibly stubborn, emotional child. You have to wonder how things got so messy. Honestly, I just wanted to have a normal chat with her. Sitting up straight, I tell her that if she is going to obsess over this, there is nothing I can do. We were never even official. The past is gone. Why drag it back up, Miss Vesper? Does digging into every little detail like this actually make you happy? Fine, I will tell you. I casually talked to a few girls and held hands at most, but we never became official, let alone did anything else. Are you happy now? Tears well up in Vesper's eyes. As I stand up, she desperately reaches out to grab my sleeve. Massaging my temples in pure frustration, my voice feels empty. I honestly believe that if I just played along, we would get along fine, but now I realize I can never understand the way your mind works. Seeing her look so miserable, my voice softens. You are clearly unhappy with me. You even hurt yourself. Vesper, should we cancel the wedding? Absolutely not. She snaps back, staring at me with terrifying determination. She locks onto my arm with a crushing grip, begging over and over that we cannot cancel this. Our faces are inches apart, close enough to see the soft glow of her skin. Hearing her desperate voice, I feel like a monster bullying a helpless kid. With my mind completely blank, I look at her and ask one more time why she even wants to marry me. Vesper looks away nervously, trying to hide her face, but I gently grab her chin and force her to look back at me. Look at me, Vesper. I lock eyes with her, telling her that I absolutely refuse to be treated like a clueless stranger. Her eyelashes tremble as she whispers softly that she just wants to marry me. But why? Fresh tears fill her blinking eyes, her look completely pleading, hiding something she just cannot bring herself to say out loud. So I decide to say it for her, asking if she likes me. And why that is so hard to admit. I pinch her cheek and try to stand, but she suddenly tackles me onto the couch, dropping her sweet act as she grips my collar, weeping quietly. She asks if she is disgusting. Is liking me really that annoying? I stare at her in absolute disbelief. What on earth is actually going on inside this girl's beautiful head? She actually thinks she is annoying and gross? Doesn't she know she was literally voted the #1 ideal wife online? Can you believe someone so perfect could actually be this deeply insecure? Suddenly, everything starts to fall into place. Cupping her delicate face, I gently wipe away the tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. When my friends found out I was actually marrying you, they were all green with envy, claiming I used up a lifetime of good luck for this. Why is loving me a crime to her? She buries her face in my chest, completely silent. But at least she finally stops crying. Patting her back, I sigh softly, asking Vesper to have just a little more confidence. You literally own a 32-story office building. Everyone in this city bows down and calls you Boss Vesper. You are absolutely gorgeous, Vesper. Falling in love with you would honestly be the most natural thing ever. Vesper shivers, whispering in disbelief. You like me? Duh. Of course I do. Why else would I keep coming to see you every single day? It is not like I have nothing else to do. Stroking her back, I tell her gently that I never waste time on people I do not care about, and that she is truly amazing and always will be. Just trust me. Hearing this, Vesper bursts into tears again, her warm tears soaking right through my collar. She begs me not to lie, and when I promise I am not, my heart completely melts into a puddle. Gently massaging her ear, I feel her heart pounding frantically. Honestly, she is nothing like any of the other women I have ever known. It is refreshing, but Vesper is just so incredibly fragile. A single word or even a slight change in my attitude can completely break her. Honestly, a personality like hers shouldn't belong to someone of her status. But the reality was just somehow that bizarre and absurd. She stood up awkwardly, her eyes terribly red, yet habitually put on her cold boss face to look at me and softly ask if I was hungry. A little, I replied, standing up to straighten my messy clothes. As I pulled my shirt down to cover my exposed abs, Vesper quickly looked away, her face turning as red as a ripe tomato. So innocent. She's definitely still holding on to that purity of hers. Suppressing my inner doubts, I lazily told her to have her assistant pack some food. She simply nodded. As Vesper went out to find her assistant and give the order, I watched her walk away against the light and sighed. Gorgeous looks, perfect body, rich and clean. Honestly, without her mental issues, 8 lifetimes of luck wouldn't be enough for me to land her. Vesper's unstable mental state mostly stemmed from her insomnia. Her assistant embarrassingly revealed that for many nights, Vesper had been sleeping while tightly clutching a photo of me. I didn't press about where she got those pictures, making her assistant sigh in relief. Returning to Vesper's side, I quietly watched her work for a good while. The tips of her ears flushed red. Unable to focus under my stare, she finally put down her work documents. She asked if she was really that good looking. I subconsciously nodded. Then, I remembered my actual business here. Watch her reaction here. I asked to see the new bridal home she prepared, making her freeze in shock. I smiled, telling her it's where we'll be living together. She never refused me. Nodding softly, she told me to just speak up if there was anything I disliked. Stepping into that familiar villa again, I zoned out, the warm sunlight streamed in, feeling pretty cozy on my skin. Completely different from my past life, where this place was so cold and gloomy it sent chills down my spine. I sneaked a glance at the locked room on the far right of the second floor. I knew it was packed with photos and oil paintings she drew of my face. I quietly followed Vesper into the master bedroom. Inside, the bed was decked out in bright red wedding sheets, complete with a massive double happiness symbol. Looking at the bed, I wanted to laugh but also felt like crying. Finally, I pulled Vesper close as she stood there awkwardly. Did she want to marry me this badly? Her eyes blinked, softly asking if I disliked anything. Telling her it was perfect, I pulled her onto the bed and asked when she actually started preparing all this. The room next door was exactly where she ended her life in the past timeline. Back then, blood covered the floor. But right now, she was safe in my arms, leaning against me obediently. She looked gentle and stunning, like a lazy, content cat basking in the warm sun. Now wait. Had I actually managed to rewrite her tragic fate? The wedding date was approaching incredibly fast. I visited her every single day, staying quite late before heading home. My mother scolded me several times, complaining that I couldn't even wait for these last few days. But Vesper seemed incredibly happy. She ate more, gained some healthy weight, and her thin, bony fingers finally had some flesh on them. One day, on my way to see Vesper, I spotted Blythe waiting downstairs at her company. She desperately threw herself at me. She screamed that I was bewitched and begged to go abroad. Pushing her away, I maintained a very safe distance. Gritting her teeth, Blythe insisted she couldn't watch me sink deeper, claiming I didn't even actually love Vesper. She argued I was only chasing a novelty, begging me not to throw my life away like this. I found her behavior bizarre. I asked what my feelings had to do with her, pointing out she was meddling way too much. Big tears rolled down Blythe's face as her expression instantly turned tragic. It felt as if all her energy suddenly drained away. She softly begged me to agree to a marriage alliance instead. She begged Brother Thorne not to throw her away. Looking as pathetic as a crushed white flower, her desperate pleading made me recall my buddy's warning at her wedding in my past life. He told me that if I had married first, she definitely would have gone completely insane. Forget love at first sight. Truly, nothing compared to the deep bond she shared with me. I was her only real guy friend, the only one she ever showed genuine warmth to. Calling Blythe's name with a heavy heart, I gently brushed the dust off her shoulder, telling her to go home and that I'd ignore her words today. Since I am getting married, she needs to be much more careful in the future. Otherwise, people will easily misunderstand and it will be impossible to explain. She just shook her head, muttering softly. She asked if missing her chance just once meant there was really no turning back for us as friends. I replied using the exact words she gave me in my past life: if you want, we can be friends for the rest of our lives. When I pushed the door open and walked in, Vesper was sitting on the sofa, radiating a cloud of heavy gloom. She asked why I was so late. I told her I ran into a friend downstairs and chatted. Placing her favorite pastries on the table, I noticed her face was still dark and brooding. It felt pretty strange. I asked her what was wrong, and Vesper looked up with a voice that sounded surprisingly hurt. She asked how my chat with Blythe was. How did she know? I wanted to ask, but then remembered the small army she has tailing me and realized there was no point. So, I just told the absolute truth. I told her Blythe wanted me to run away with her. Suddenly, a flash of pure, venomous rage flickered across Vesper's eyes. Pulling her close to calm her down, I explained that I rejected her because I like Vesper more. Her lips formed a quiet gasp, making me smile. I teased her, asking if she was going to praise me. She muttered what was there to praise, so I reminded her of my loyalty. I pinched her side playfully, whispering into her ear with a hint of mock anger. I asked if my gorgeous fiancé had any reward for me. Vesper just stared back, looking completely lost and flustered. After a long pause, she stood up and retrieved a small box from a drawer. Opening it revealed a luxury watch that looked incredibly familiar. It was the watch from the Hong Kong auction. I instantly burst out laughing. Designed by a top master, Vesper had dropped $30 million on it. Back then, the headlines mocked her as the $30 million sucker who bought it. I asked why she bought it. She softly replied that she knew I loved blue, and thought it matched. Holding her close, I nuzzled her neck. The auction was 2 months ago, so why bring it out today? She whispered that she saw I was upset today. It was meant for my birthday, but she figured making me happy right now was better. When was I upset? Then I recalled my fake anger. This girl seriously cannot tell the difference between real anger and playful teasing. She is so cute. I told her I was just joking. I really like her more and more. Vesper's face flushed red as I pulled her onto my lap, gently kissing her neck. Honestly, aside from that one time she completely lost control, I did not really notice Vesper's mental instability. Whenever she was around me, she seemed like a completely normal girl who was just a bit dense about love and relationships. Yet her assistant kept warning me never to trigger her. I had to ask if Vesper's condition had gotten worse lately. The assistant quietly murmured that it had not. In fact, Vesper's mood had improved so much she did not even need sleeping pills anymore. So, I asked. Then why? She warned me that Vesper got better because of our bond. If I ever got bored and left, the fallout would be catastrophic. The assistant begged me, saying she did not care about my motives, but begged me not to just walk away. She said Vesper would completely lose her mind. I mentally added that Vesper would probably die too. I patted the assistant's shoulder. Telling her to relax, I said I care about her more than anyone. I am no saint, nor a professional therapist. I can only do my absolute best to keep Vesper happy. I just want to bring some light into her dark world. If her mood improves, everything else will follow. But get this, Vesper's mother suddenly comes looking for me out of nowhere. This was actually the very first time I had ever heard about her family. Hailing from the capital, she was dressed in incredibly elegant clothes, sharing Vesper's face but carrying a completely different, terrifying aura. Sitting down, she bluntly demanded that I leave her daughter. Hearing those classic words, I was actually a bit stunned. Taking a calm sip of my tea, I asked how much she was offering. She sneered, asking if 20 million was enough to save my family. That made me pause. Honestly, I did not even know my family was facing any kind of crisis. I quietly watched her, then boldly declared our love was real, so she needed to double the offer. She let out a dry, mocking laugh. She sneered, asking if staying with Vesper was safe. She told me to go ask around about my past girlfriends. Are any of them even alive? Do you think she will spare Blythe? Or your own sister, do you think blood ties will protect her from Vesper? She warned me that Vesper is going to ruin everyone around us, and this beautiful love story of ours will only bring pure suffering. And I was kept in the dark like an idiot, knowing absolutely nothing. She asked if it was hilarious. Frowning in disgust, I firmly stated that I believe in Vesper. She is not that kind of monster. But Vesper's mother just smiled smugly, telling me to go ahead and check for myself. She claimed that the terrifying methods she used on Vesper's father would be used on me, word for word. I shot back, asking if her husband was still by her side then. She smirked, claiming they were living very happily. She burst out laughing with a triumphant look. He was completely trapped, forced to accept his fate to keep his family alive. He simply couldn't bear to abandon everything and just vanish. He is quite gentle now, totally obedient with all his sharp edges completely filed down, tamed so much that he only relies on me. Suddenly, I jolted awake. Just a nightmare. Outside, the biting north wind was howling violently against the glass, snapping me right out of my daze. Seriously, in my whole life, I had never met anyone quite as twisted as Vesper's mother. Thinking about her incredibly smug, sick logic literally made my stomach turn. Still afternoon. It turned out I had napped for almost 3 hours. I checked my phone, only to see 16 missed calls from Vesper staring right back at me. I called back, but Vesper's panicked voice immediately cut me off. Why didn't you answer my calls? Did you meet with her? She cried. What did she say to you? Do you not want me anymore? Are you leaving me? Canceling our wedding? Are you breaking up with me? I helplessly cut her off. Stop guessing. I wasn't trying to avoid your phone calls. I just fell asleep, so please don't overthink it. Vesper fell completely silent before whispering in a pitiful voice, Thorne, I'm so scared. Her voice sounded so pitiful, triggering a huge wave of sympathy inside me. I sighed. Even if she is your mother, she's just a complete stranger to me. I choose to believe you over her. Do you understand? Vesper didn't answer, only whispering in a barely audible voice that she wanted to see me. The moment I climbed into the car, she begged me with tear-filled eyes, please don't believe a word she says. Don't believe her. I gently patted her back, softly reassuring her, I only believe you. Just look at her. Vesper looked up with tear-stained eyelashes. Under my training, she was finally expressing her real feelings naturally. Whether she felt hurt, sad, or completely overwhelmed, she actually knew to tell me now instead of bottling it up inside. Even right now, she was begging me to never meet her mother again because today had truly terrified her. When you didn't pick up, I honestly felt like I was going to die. Shh, don't say that, I said, covering her mouth. You are definitely going to live to 100, I promised. That completely broke her tragic momentum, leaving her looking quite dazed. I gently stroked her hair, a soft smile tugging at my lips. If you don't want me to see her, then I won't. After all, the only reason I even met her was because of you. Honestly, you need to have a bit more confidence. I squeezed her hand tight, telling her that no matter what anyone else said, I wouldn't believe a single word of it. My trust only goes to what I see with my own eyes, what I hear, and what you tell me. You are a truly wonderful person. You have to be confident. But man, Vesper was still so deeply insecure. I had no idea what kind of trauma made her this terrified and fragile, especially when dealing with romance. She was always panicking, constantly feeling like she simply wasn't worthy of being loved by anyone. Lately, I praised her every chance I got, complimenting her looks, her intelligence, her wealth, and her status. I even told her that her tiny fingernails looked absolutely adorable. Only with real confidence would she finally stop flinching like a startled bird, living in absolute panic every day. I really wanted Vesper to find genuine peace and happiness in our relationship, instead of constantly stressing over how to keep me pleased. That would just be incredibly exhausting for her. Vesper, I'm a grown adult with my own mind, and I won't ever change my opinion of you because of someone's bitter lies. I wrapped my arms around Vesper, promising that since I love her, if anything ever comes up, I'll ask. because I am absolutely not leaving. Besides, there's no way I'm letting some random guy swoop in and win your heart for free. Her eyes sparkled like scattered diamonds. Compared to the freezing shell she had when we first met, that cold guard was finally melting, replaced by some actual human warmth. She didn't look like the fragile girl who might fade away at any second anymore. It worked. My presence was finally making a real, tangible impact. I knew her family had put her through absolute hell, but as she huddled in my arms, softly whispering how much she hated her own name, I was still pretty shocked. She blamed me for getting between her and my father, so she chose this name, literally hoping I'd die a painful, early death. Ever since she was brought into this world, her own mother wanted nothing more than to see her dead. So cruel. How could any mother be like that? My heart ached, but your dad loved you, right? He didn't love me, Vesper whispered with a deeply bitter smile. He was just tied down by my existence. He's completely different from you. Even with all his education, he was stubbornly bound by family duty, and after I arrived, his rebellions became completely meaningless. His strong sense of responsibility kept him from leaving me, but on his own, he could never afford to give me a decent life. In the end, he was forced to accept his bleak fate. Saying this, her eyes grew red and glossy, completely clouded with tears. It broke my heart just watching her struggle as I whispered, "None of this is your fault. Whatever mess your mother made back then, you shouldn't have to suffer for it." As I ran my fingers through her long hair, I looked her in the eyes and said she was incredible, and her dad would absolutely be proud of who she is today. She gave me a sad smile, leaning into my chest, whispering that only I could ever think she was actually good. She begged me with everything she had, crying that I was all she had left and that I must never leave her. Otherwise, she would just lose her mind. Later, opening my inbox, seeing all those toxic emails, I really wanted to meet this mother and see how someone could be so hateful. Imagine hating your own daughter's happiness enough to destroy it. I could only take a deep breath. Most of the messages were flat-out threats or creepy advice warning me to stay far away from her. I didn't even bother reading them, just cleared the whole inbox. We were smack in the middle of planning our wedding, and organizing my family's massive guest list was giving me a serious headache. So, Vesper and I barely talked lately. But this is where things take a truly horrifying turn. I got a frantic call that evening, saying she'd attempted suicide. There was this terrible, long silence, and suddenly, my entire body went completely numb. Just before doing it, Vesper had met up with her mother. I had no idea what kind of toxic poison that woman spewed to completely break her fragile mind. The second her mother left, Vesper slit her wrists. Thank goodness she was found. Now, I could only slump against the ER wall. How could any mother do this? She knew exactly how incredibly fragile her daughter's mental health really was. Yet she didn't hesitate to pull the lineage of death. Every single bit of healthy color I had spent weeks helping her regain was completely gone in a single second. Sitting in the chair by her bed, I just stared at her blankly, totally zoned out until she finally opened her eyes. When she opened her eyes, she looked at me and, in a horribly raspy voice, managed to croak out my name, Thorne. I didn't say a single word. I just stood up, called the doctor in, and quietly waited for them to remove her IV. I just stood there next to the bed, silently staring down at her pale, lifeless face. My silence terrified her, and she started panicking, begging me to just yell at her if I was angry, but please not to ignore her. She was absolutely terrified of the silent treatment. Whenever I got cold and ignored her, she'd act like a scared child, tugging at my sleeve and desperately begging for my forgiveness. But this time, I was not going to humor her. I didn't say a word for a whole day, watching her spiral into pure panic, completely losing herself in despair. She even clawed her wrist wounds open again, letting the fresh blood pool out continuously. Even the doctor stepped in, advising me to prioritize her fragile state. I just softly told him that I knew. Telling him not to worry, I walked back inside, seeing Vesper staring completely blankly out the window. She looked so incredibly fragile, like an empty shell without a soul. Standing 3 meters away, I called her name softly, my voice completely cold. She clearly realized something, painfully shutting her eyes and refusing to answer me. And get this, I didn't care about her dodging, bluntly telling her we should call off the wedding as the bedside vase shattered. Her face froze for a second before completely collapsing into pure, absolute despair. She shrieked my name in a raw, broken voice. Screaming my name, she scrambled on her hands and knees to reach me, ripping her wrist wounds open as blood poured out. I stepped forward, pinning her bleeding wrists down while gently stroking her messy hair. I asked her what she was trying to do. Did she want to act like her mother, locking me up and controlling me? Or would she rather mutilate herself instead of ever hurting me? She just stared up at me, whispering my name, so I answered for her. She would definitely choose that second option. I leaned down and kissed her lips gently, a deep, lingering kiss with zero lust in it. Pulling away, I softly patted her cheek, telling her she wasn't her mother, and I wasn't her father. We were never going to end up like them. My sweet Vesper, what exactly were you so terrified of? In that moment, I felt like I could finally see into the darkest corner of her mother's mind. That woman knew that even though Vesper's dad had accepted his miserable fate and stayed with her, he was never happy. Their marriage was far from the bliss she imagined. So, she absolutely loathed seeing her own daughter happy. Seeing Vesper find love so effortlessly made her feel like an absolute failure, twisting her deep-seated shame into pure, toxic rage. She kept screaming that Vesper was her daughter, while relentlessly brainwashing the poor girl, too. I checked the security footage later. Before leaving, her mother coldly told her to just wait and see. She warned her that as long as she stayed alive, she would eventually end up treating me exactly how she had treated her dad. And when that day came, his miserable present would be my future. Hearing that, I just let out a dark, sarcastic laugh. Think about it, that woman actually knew her own husband, Vesper's dad, was utterly miserable. He was so broken that threatening to turn me into him actually worked. Vesper simply refused to let me suffer like her father did. She hated the thought of hurting me, utterly disgusted by the toxic family traits waking up inside of her. So, without a single doubt, she chose to end her life. Do you see the difference between you and her? I knelt by the bed, staring deeply into Vesper's eyes, telling her that when her mother faced abandonment, she only chose force, threats, and cages. But you only turn that pain inward on yourself. I gently took her good hand and laced my fingers with hers. How could someone as sweet as you ever hurt me? Vesper's eyes welled up with tears, staring back with deep, tragic sorrow. She sobbed that she was terrified because I was too good, fearing I'd break like her dad. I promised her once again we won't. I told her we are going to be incredibly happy. Human nature is wild, and we all harbor dark, primitive desires deep down inside. But what truly makes us human is our strength to control and master those urges. You feared hurting me, but you fought those instincts. Vesper, trust yourself, we have evolved way past the age of simple beasts. We aren't monsters tearing at flesh anymore. Staring into her teary eyes, I begged her to trust me, because I am nothing like her mother. I choose to stay with you simply because I love you. And then, she whispered back that she loved me so incredibly much. Hearing her repeat my words, I squeezed her hand and told her with absolute seriousness that she had to trust me. Honestly, I had given up on romance long ago, mostly because I despised selfish people. Without Vesper, I would have stayed single forever, just like my previous life, ending up entirely alone, dying out there on some remote expedition. In all my years, I had never crossed paths with anyone truly breathtaking, until her. Going from pity to pure love felt so natural. But to protect our future, I immediately set up a meeting with Vesper's mother. Sitting across from her in a quiet cafe, I asked her softly if her husband used to be a dashing, heroic diplomat back in the day. Her eyes narrowed, asking why I brought it up. Yet now he just rots at home, his mind fading away while the world leaves him behind, making you absolutely despise what he became. You finally realized that the man you fell for was the proud hero of the past, not this pathetic shell of a husband, am I right? She snapped, trying to stop me. I only smiled, telling her that the worst part was she single-handedly caused this entire tragic mess. I have no clue if he's cheating, but seeing you now, I bet it is pretty likely. He probably regrets ever loving you after how things ended up. Why did his perfect life fall apart the moment he finally got everything he wanted? Let Vesper go, I murmured, telling her she suffered enough for her parents. She shouldn't be the outlet for their bitter, unresolved frustration. If you refuse to back off, I smiled coldly, keep in mind I'm only being civilized because you happen to be her mother. The second you try to hurt her again, you're finished. Surprisingly, she didn't explode in anger. Instead, she slumped back in her chair, looking completely lost. I had voiced the brutal truth she always hid. Are you realizing that if your husband had half my spine, you both wouldn't be so miserable? But she whispered I was wrong. She hissed that if she had met someone like me, they would have torn each other apart until they both died. She claimed anyone in my grasp would suffer. I smiled, deliberately pushing her buttons even further. She lunged at me in a fury, but I easily dodged. Seriously, watching a 50-year-old drama queen get pinned by bodyguards? Let me tell you, it was pretty embarrassing to watch. I chuckled, looking down at her, and repeated my warning. As I told you before, I am not some weak pushover you can just push around. Let me make this clear. Stay away from Vesper, I warned, pouring a cup of scalding hot coffee right over her head. I will ruin you. While I normally don't advocate fighting fire with fire, I must admit a little force really does solve things quickly. After all, River City was still ruled by the powerful, old money families. She stood absolutely zero chance against me, forcing her to swallow her bitter hatred and vanish forever. Fast forward to our wedding night, Vesper was resting in my arms, smiling like a joyful child. She kept whispering my name in disbelief, calling me a dummy and saying she finally married her dream guy. I patted her back with a soft chuckle, teasing her for drinking way too much before heading off to the shower. Her silly smile followed me into the bathroom, and when I walked back out, she was sitting obediently on the edge of our bed. I quietly lit the special scented candles I had specifically bought for our wedding night. The second she looked at me, her cheeks flushed bright crimson. She was incredibly adorable, and I couldn't help but pull her close. Nightmares. That night, I had to watch Vesper's tragic past life play out. After I ran away from our wedding in that timeline, her mother smugly tormented her, mocking her that she would inevitably hunt me down, lock me up, and stop hiding her true self. She hissed that Vesper's true nature was a greedy lunatic, warning her that I would end up just like her father, completely tortured to absolute insanity. Agony. I watched Vesper clutch her head, screaming out in the dark. Surrounded by walls plastered with my photos, her face twisted in pain as she kept repeating that she never wanted to hurt me, before choosing to end it all. I jolted awake with a gasp, my back drenched in cold sweat, but right beside me, Vesper lay peacefully in my arms, her sleeping face so calm and serene. Tracing her eyebrow, I carefully slipped out of bed to stand right in front of that locked door. I stole her heavy keyring, testing them one by one. The lock clicked. If you saw what was waiting inside, you would be just as speechless. Her past suicide was likely a desperate self-destruction born from extreme pressure and deep disgust toward her own family genetics. In her final moments, staring at my photos as blood pooled from her wrists, she felt her life slip away while keeping her eyes locked onto my smiling face. Even as she drew her very last breath, her eyes held nothing but me. Remembering how the internet called her the ultimate simp queen in my past life, they really weren't exaggerating. To this day, I still had no idea why she loved me so deeply. She absolutely refused to tell me. No matter how many times I asked, she kept quiet, but I suppose a married couple can afford to have a few little secrets. Since she wanted to keep it hidden, I dropped it. Suddenly, Thorne Vesper stood right behind me in the doorway, bathed in the soft backlight. Looking completely lost, she nervously whispered if I thought she was some kind of absolute creep. I shook my head, pulling her close as she tearfully asked why I left the bed, complaining that I wasn't there beside her. She said the sheets felt freezing, making me chuckle. Back when we first met, she was so incredibly icy she barely knew how to hold a basic conversation. Now? She was an absolute pro at acting cute and clingy. I guess anyone showered with unconditional love will eventually let their guard down and become as clingy as a pampered baby animal. Tugging my sleeve, she timidly repeated her question, but I just smiled and told her the truth, that she was just uniquely fascinating to me. I admitted I never expected her to fall for me so early on, asking if she was worried I would actually be mad. Her face flushed a deep crimson as she softly asked if my kindness meant I would indulge her no matter what she decided to do. I gently reassured her that I knew she would never hurt me, promising that my trust in her was absolute. I refused to doubt Vesper for even a single second. Genuine love is incredibly rare, and finding someone who loves you back is even more of a miracle. Pure devotion. I deeply cherished her love, just as she did mine. But when a pampered baby animal feels her precious dynamic is threatened, she will absolutely go wild to protect it. And that is exactly how she reacted to Blythe. It took serious effort to keep her from tossing the package my childhood friend sent over. Blythe sent over a hand-knitted scarf, even sewing a tiny little heart onto it. Talk about obvious flirting. The second Vesper saw it, she was ready to go completely feral. She plopped onto the sofa with a pout, looking utterly betrayed and refusing to budge. I paid her no mind and picked up the scarf anyway. Grumbling about what was so great about a simple scarf, she shuffled closer, clearly begging for a warm embrace. Too nervous to complain out loud, she softly whimpered for her husband. Laughing, I pulled her close and immediately tossed the offending scarf right into her lap. Telling her she could deal with it as long as she didn't throw it out, she grabbed scissors and furiously snipped it into tiny shreds. I watched her in silence. Asking if she held some deep grudge against Blythe, she instantly froze her hands, softly humming a quiet note of agreement. She admitted she always disliked Blythe because she had the chance to be close to me, yet still chose to mess around with other guys. I chuckled and comforted her, pointing out that since we were together now, there was absolutely no way Blythe could ever wedge herself between us. She turned her bright red face away to avoid my gaze, softly murmuring a tiny, embarrassed agreement. Truth be told, I never actually tried to treat her depression in any clinical way. I simply treated her like anyone else, showering her with warmth, cheering her up like a beloved child, and offering her a deep, unwavering sense of security. Slowly but surely, she began to heal. All the trauma, insecurity, and pain her abusive family had inflicted, I completely washed away with love. She grew incredibly reliant on me, and with that came a beautiful surge of new confidence. My assistant once warned me that letting someone tie her entire emotional well-being to me wasn't healthy, but honestly, there was no turning back now. Terminally in love. That was my Vesper. My assistant did not dare voice those words out loud, and I certainly did not help her finish the thought, as long as we both understood. To be honest, I felt something was off too. Her entire soul belonged to someone else, not herself. If anything ever happened to me, her very spirit would completely shatter, leaving her unable to survive. I let out a sigh. You cannot have it all in this life, right? Since I took her in, I had to accept every single side of her. There was no way I would force her to change. A real relationship should bring peace and joy to both partners, not force them through painful adjustments. I just wanted her to be genuinely happy. The rest was just noise. Then, right on our third anniversary, Vesper found out she was pregnant. Anxious and sleepless, she was clearly struggling with a deep, painful worry. I had to ask what was eating at her. She clung to me, weeping softly as she confessed she was terrified she would not be a good mother. Worrying about messing up, she asked if I would blame her. I stroked her hair. You will always matter more to me. Our baby is never going to go hungry, that is for sure. As for who they become or how they choose to live, that is entirely on them. Vesper, you and I are the ones walking this entire life path side by side. Her eyes went wide, struggling to find the right words to say. After a long silence, she finally muttered that I was just so incredibly strange. Maybe some people lose themselves completely to burn like candles for their children, spending every day paving their way. I refuse to do that. Life is far too short to ignore our own happiness. Living only for others makes life incredibly dull. Honestly, Vesper and I saw things a little differently. She craved a real family. To her, having a handsome husband and a lively, noisy child running around was the ultimate definition of true joy. I looked at Vesper and told her she would be amazing. Every single thing you missed out on as a kid will be given to our baby. You will love him fiercely, and by giving him that beautiful life, you will slowly heal your own painful past. Vesper softly agreed that she wanted this baby for that exact reason, but she insisted that I would always be her number one. She promised to love him well. I smiled, letting her know I completely believed in her and that our child was bound to be incredibly happy. He is going to live a long, wonderful life, and I will be right there to ensure his path is smooth and filled with joy. We had a bright future. But wait until you hear Vesper's dark secret. The absolute first time she laid eyes on him was in a disgusting ditch behind their high school. Back then, she was utterly filthy, starving near death, and desperately clawing through garbage cans for food when she suddenly ran right into Thorne. To her, he looked like a literal savior in his neat school uniform, standing at the alley entrance and watching her. A flash of pity crossed his face before he pulled out $2,000 and handed it over. He gently told her to find something else to do, to stop forcing herself into a life she clearly despised. She had no idea why he saved her. Maybe it was simple pity, or maybe he was just passing through. This is crazy. She only knew Thorne saved her life. Using those $2,000, she bought a ticket out of town and worked day and night, using her crazy stock market talent to ride the internet boom. When she finally returned to River City, she was draped in luxury, surrounded by a massive team of brilliant elite advisors. Meanwhile, to keep up his disguise, Thorne was busy playing games and flirting with countless different girls. It did not surprise her, but it still hurt. Perhaps it was just the dark, obsessive traits in her blood. A toxic urge clawed at her. She knew it was wrong and tried to bury it. But holding back that dark obsession tore her apart, leaving her with a severe, crippling mental illness. Forcing a marriage alliance with his family, the Gu family, was her final, desperate gamble. She wanted him all to herself, no matter the cost. Utter loneliness ate her alive day and night, but if Thorne truly rejected her, she swore she would walk away. She refused to be toxic like her mother, but then, to her shock, Thorne actually walked right into her life. That made her entire struggle worth it. Fast forward to the 6th year of our marriage, and our kid was already 2 years old. Years later, Vesper had a vivid dream about her past life. She died alone in a freezing, pitch-black room. She saw Thorne lay a single delicate rose beside her lifeless body. Staring up at the full moon, she spent that entire night on the balcony. It resembled the round vestry her husband bought her, bringing a deep, inexplicable sadness. If Thorne had run away on their wedding day, that dark, lonely death would have been her reality. Vesper, now totally calm, could barely even recognize her own desperate, extreme past self. Still, she got it. A broken mind is capable of absolutely anything, but thankfully, Thorne stayed by her side this time. Thorne held her from behind, softly asking why her mood had been so off all afternoon. Vesper felt a little hurt, wanting nothing more than to seek comfort from him, but the words completely failed her. She just nuzzled against his chest for a long time, holding him close until she realized questioning things was useless. Thorne genuinely hated dwelling on the past, always reminding her that they needed to focus on building a happy future together. So she stopped obsessing. There was no point. No matter what,